Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Welcome to the Andrew Parker Show. This is episode 395, and it is a special edition of the Andrew Parker Show, as this is the 80th anniversary this week of the liberation of the Dachau concentration camp, the first and model concentration camp of the Nazi regime, established to require hard labor on all of its prisoners and later to annihilate and destroy the Jewish population in Europe and beyond. It was called the Final Solution by the Third Reich, by Adolf Hitler. It was a systematic, government-run murder machine. It was true genocide, not throwing that word around loosely and lightly like so many do today. It was a final solution as described by the Nazi government to eliminate the Jewish people from the face of the earth. And when it took too much expense, when it took too much time, the planning teams went to work and reduced the expense and reduced the amount of time in order that more could be killed quicker and more cheaply, creating gas chambers and crematoria to move people through the line to their demise and death. And the Dachau concentration camp, whose liberation occurred 80 years ago, as the model, started in 1933 and operated for some 12 years. It was a labor camp and then death camp, which also included medical experimentation. And I am going to be attending the 80th commemoration event of the liberation of Dachau, just outside of Munich in the small town of Dachau, Germany. And I hope to have some footage for you upon my attendance at the commemoration event with my son, Sam Parker, now a citizen and living in the state of Israel, further underscoring that Hitler's plan did not work. It is not the Jews that have ended. It is the Third Reich that has ended. Sadly, we see far too many signs of continuing the Third Reich in real terms, of promoting, supporting those who would carry out Nazi-like acts. For example, on October 7, there aren't any other examples, really. Since World War II, it is the worst of the examples. Yet it is cheered, supported, promoted on college campuses here in the United States. A failure to understand history will cause us to repeat it, of course. And these kids know not of what they play with as they claim, in the name of free speech, that they have a right to support this sort of annihilation, as disgusting as it is. Well, we have an obligation to educate our kids about the Holocaust, about the fact that it is not just the killing of a lot of people. It is not just collateral damage of civilians during warfare. No, this was an intentional, systematic process developed by the Nazis who were elected in Germany. And the German people fully supported, not all of them, but mostly. Whether it be out of fear or genuine support, hard to tell. But it operated to the point of destroying 6 million lives at least just in the Jewish population. A third of all Jews in the world destroyed, murdered, innocents. And Dachau was a camp that stood out as the model camp. Sam Parker and I are going because the liberation of Dachau is very close to us. As my father, at the age of 22, was a sergeant in the scout troop in the 45th Infantry Division, the United States Army. And after marching through Munich, Germany, having heard about the Dachau, a camp near Dachau, a small town just 30 minutes outside of Munich, they marched onward toward this area. And when they got to the town, asked townspeople where this camp was that they had heard about, this labor camp. Nobody knew. Been there for 12 years. Nobody knew. Don't know where it is. Don't know what you're talking about. Marching a bit further, my father, as the sergeant of the scout troop out in front of the U.S. infantry, military, the Army, came upon the camp. And he wrote a letter home 3 days later. He wrote the letter on May 1st, so that would mark the time when he came upon the camp was April 28th. And the U.S. Army close behind the next day. And April 29th is the liberation day of that camp. My father never talked about it until very, very late in his life, his last year. Really. Passed away in 2011. And Sam and I go to honor what he did in late April 1945, 80 years ago, what he came upon and what he wrote home about as to what he saw, what he himself witnessed. That letter was protected ever since the war. He wrote home to he had 3 siblings, the youngest sister, and his parents, my grandparents. And that letter is now in the National Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., as well as in Yad Vashem. And you can see, if you are following us on video, the letter from Yad Vashem acknowledging receipt of what my father wrote home. And here are the handwritten notes dated May 1st, 1945, that my father wrote. We read this 5 years ago during the 75th commemoration on the Victory Hour. Sam Parker read it, the grandson of Leonard Parker, whose nickname and his parents knew him as Sammy. My father, they knew him as Sammy. So we're going to have a rereading by Sam Parker, a replaying of his reading of the letter that his grandfather wrote some 80 years ago now. Take a listen.
The date was May 1st, 1945. Dearest Mom, Dad, and Jackie, there is so much I must write to you about. I know you have been worried about me, but the very fact you have this letter should assure you that I am still well and trusting in God. A little tired and worn out, perhaps, and maybe a little older than my 22 years, but well, nevertheless. Since the last letter which I wrote to you from Nuremberg, we have come a long way in just a short while. Many times since I have come overseas while miserable in a wet foxhole, or sweating out an army artillery barrage, or lying out in the rain pinned down by enemy small arms fire, I have asked myself, what is it all about? Why am I here? Why? After what I saw the past few days, it seems easy to answer these questions, which up to now seemed unanswerable. You see, 3 days ago, we freed a German concentration camp, the second largest in all of rotten Germany, at Dachau, just outside Munich. At one time, there were 150,000 prisoners there, Jews, Poles, Russians, Czechs, and German political prisoners. Now, there are barely 13,000 left. When our company first approached the camp, we came upon a railroad on which there were many boxcars, all of them filled with dead bodies. The attack was terrible. There were young children and women and men who had been lined up and machine-gunned to death by the SS just a few days previously. Why? Because they couldn't be taken along by the retreating Nazis. We took no German prisoners that day. All that we captured, and there were 350 SS, we killed. They are no better than swine, and we treated them as such. We saw and smelled the crematorium where they cremated the dead bodies after removing the shoes and any other valuables that people might possess. We saw the quarters where these people stayed. Some had been there as long as 12 years. We heard from the lips of the prisoners themselves as to how they were beaten and starved and made to work anywhere from 12 to 18 hours in one day. We listened to countless stories of cruelty and the inhumanity of the Nazis, and it made one want to tear the eyes out of the next German soldier you saw. When we liberated the prisoners, maybe I'd better go into more detail. You see, that day my company was spearheading and my squad was scouting up ahead of the column. We came upon the camp enclosure, and out of the gate came 3 prisoners dressed in the blue and white striped suits that they all wore. The first one yelled at me, "Boy, are we glad to see you," and you could have knocked me over with a feather because I hadn't expected anyone to yell at me in English. He was a U.S. Army captain who had been parachuted into France 3 months before D-Day on a secret mission and had been subsequently captured by the Gestapo and sent to Dachau. I guess the rest of the prisoners had been waiting to see if we were all right, because there then came a flood of human skeletons out of the gates, mostly Jews, some Poles, and others mixed in. The captain was the only American in the bunch. Mom, these people fell on our necks and kissed us, crying for joy. They fell on the ground at our feet and kissed our boots and grabbed for our hands and kissed them, and these suffering, crying Jewish people yelled, "Dank Gott, was ze haben gekommen, getit zenen mir frei." There were women, children, and men alike, those that were able to walk, all crying, half mad with happiness. The last 4 million Jewish people in Germany. The last of the 4 million Jewish people in Germany. By that time, the rest of the company had caught up, and we gave them our cigarettes, which they grabbed up like a drowning man would grab at the air. They fought like mad dogs amongst themselves over the rations that were passed out. You see, they had been on a diet of 10 grams dark bread, what they called water soup, and 1 potato each day. It tore our hearts out to see people who had suffered so much, and many of us had eyes overflowed with tears. A Jewish man came up to me and asked me if it were true that there were Jewish soldiers in the American army. When I told him that I was a Jewish Unterofficer, he nearly went mad. Soon I had about 50 Jewish men and women around me hugging and kissing me. They were starved also for a Das Yiddishgeist, and I wanted so much to make them happy. I sang some Chazonish Stichlach for them, and also a Yiddish Shamam. One asked me if I wouldn't write my Jewish name for him on a piece of paper. Soon I was scribbling Yisrael Papush, 2127 North 16th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for them all, on dirty scraps of paper that appeared in their hands like magic. They all wanted to have a souvenir from the first American Jewish soldier they had ever seen. I saw firsthand the things that I have read about and which I never quite believed. Now I know what this war is all about. Now I know why we are fighting. To me, all the suffering and misery I've had to put up with these past 8 months has been well worthwhile. Just to see the joy on the faces of these tortured, suffering people repaid all of us that saw 1,000-fold. Maybe all this doesn't sound like me, but dear Mama, you would have to see for yourself to understand what it is. I'm proud to be one of the many who finally helped free those poor souls who have been through a hell that the decent mind cannot imagine possible here on God's own earth. We guarded the camp for 3 hours until the American military government moved in to take over, and then we moved onward to Munich. You probably know by now that Munich is now in American hands. We all believe that the war can't last much longer. The more optimistic say a week, I'll give it another month. Like the other large German cities we have taken, Munich is in rubbles. Just the outskirts maintain their former beauty. This letter has been a long one, but I wanted to let you know of how our people have suffered and that the Americans, are bringing light in their hearts and maybe in the homes they may have again someday. I have hopes that you'll feel just as I feel, that the anxiety and worry and heart suffering you are going through is for something, to stamp out the poison Hitler and his kind have spread over the world. I will write again when I can. I love you all and miss you very much. Regards to all of our friends. Still your same devoted, Sammy.
Letter written home by my father, Leonard Sammy Parker, read by his grandson, now a citizen of Israel, and lives with the Jewish people in the only Jewish state in the world. As my father wrote, maybe all this doesn't sound like me, but dear Mama, you would have to see for yourself to understand what it is. None of us saw. And we read in textbooks, usually if we are 45 or 50 or older, we read in textbooks about the Holocaust in all of its sanitized way. But it wasn't a production, it wasn't a movie, Schindler's List or otherwise. This was real. As inhumane, which is the word often used, as it is, worse treatment than animals, it actually is not inhumane because humans did it. And the most recognizable Nazi-like actions since occurred on October 7th. And the fact that they occurred at all is horrific. Despicable. But what's worse is many cheer on college and university campuses because they lack knowledge. And it is our fault that they do, and we need to make sure that this education is handed down generation to generation. Who have failed us the most are the intelligentsia, the academics, the professors at these universities. Horrific what they are teaching. My father went on in the letter, as you heard, to say, "I'm proud to be one of the many who finally helped free those poor souls who have been through a hell that the decent mind cannot imagine possible here on God's own earth." And that's what it was. That's what he came upon. This is his uniform right next to me here as I bring you this episode of the Andrew Parker Show, showing his sergeant stripes, showing in addition the 45th Infantry badge, the gold eagle in a diamond red square. And this letter is, as I said, in the National Holocaust Museum as well as in Yad Vashem. And it was read for many years on NPR. This episode of the Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard and True North Private Investments. You know, the fact that this happened and those of us in America, in some respects or others, allowed it to happen is a real issue we need to grapple with. And I commend for you all to read the book, So It Was True, The American Protestant Press and the Nazi Persecution of the Jews, written by a Protestant himself, Robert W. Ross. Professor Ross was at the University of Minnesota when I was attending, and I took this course on the Holocaust shortly after he wrote this book, and he used it as the textbook for the course. It is an amazing book. It is an eye-opening book. It is not an attack on other religions, etc., as much as it is a description of the systematic, machine-like, business-like operation of the Nazi regime for the purpose of murdering, destroying, eliminating all Jews from the face of the earth. It was a more important purpose than even the war itself, ultimately, as you see that by the fact that rather than the trains running to draw supplies and ammunition to those in the Nazi army who were fighting and needed them, they were detoured, these trains, to bring Jews to their murderous end at concentration camps and to remove bodies and take others out of concentration camps once dead. And once incinerated, they could free up some of those trains, but not without completing the final solution, which was their goal. So it's not like other sort of attacks, wars, civilian death during war. It was intentional and the focus in many respects. And again, this book, So It Was True, The American Protestant Press and the Nazi Persecution of the Jews. Excellent book. I recommend to all for some further Holocaust education. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Andrew Parker Show, a difficult episode. I will be at Dachau the week of April 29 for the commemoration and unveiling of a plaque in honor of the U.S. Army soldiers that liberated the Dachau concentration camp, including Sergeant Leonard S. Parker, at that time, Leonard S. Popish. And it'll be a great honor to be there with my son for this important event and to reconnect again on something that was so life-defining, reconnect with my father in spirit. So life-defining and affected my life and now my son's life, as exhibited by his immigration to the state of Israel. Until next time, I wish you all the best. Stay safe. Go to theandrewparkershow.com. Subscribe to all of our episodes. We talk politics, Israel, and the law. Be well. For more smart, plain talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope.
Are you a business owner? Are you losing sleep because you feel your partner isn't carrying their weight, or because you no longer share the same vision or values? Are you no longer comfortable going into your own office? Are you walking on eggshells in the company you built? This is Chris Daniels, founding partner of Parker Daniels Keyboard LLC, a premier litigation law firm headquartered in downtown Minneapolis. For more than 30 years, I've specialized in business litigation and have helped hundreds of business owners resolve troubling business disputes. As a former certified public accountant, I get to the heart of the dispute, including financial issues. Business divorce can be messy, time-consuming, and costly, but doing nothing can cost you a lot more. Not just money, but emotionally, physically, and in your personal life. If you and your business partner no longer see eye to eye, and you're eager to take a proactive approach and make a change, please call me at 612-355-4100 and schedule a consultation. Or visit our website at www.parkerdk.com.
Are you a high-income earner or a business owner looking to secure your financial future? At True North Private Investments, they focus on helping you break free from the limitations of traditional investments. Diversify your portfolio with private equity, real estate, and credit opportunities built to thrive in any market condition. Plus, their tailored tax strategies are designed to help you keep more of what you've earned. Your success deserves a smarter approach. Choose True North to grow, protect, and optimize your wealth. Call them today at 619-455-0275 or visit investtruenorth.com.